Open your refrigerator right now and look at what is inside. Not the food, the drinks, the bottle of sports drink from yesterday, the diet soda you bought because it has 0 calories, the fruit juice you squeeze every morning because it feels like the healthy choice, the protein shake you mix after your walk because you read that protein matters more after 60. Now consider this. Your kidneys filter approximately 200 liters of blood every single day. Everything that enters your bloodstream passes through them. Every compound, every additive, every natural sugar, every artificial sweetener, every mineral in excess. The kidneys process all of it, balance what the body needs, and excrete what it cannot use. When what you drink is genuinely compatible with kidney function, this process runs smoothly and efficiently for decades. When what you drink creates a chemical or hormonal burden the kidney was not designed to handle repeatedly, the damage accumulates in the filtering tissue the same way rust accumulates on metal. Slowly, invisibly, without pain, until something fails. The 7 drinks on this list are not exotic or unusual. They are things that appear in the daily routines of millions of adults who consider themselves reasonably health conscious. Some of them have been recommended by doctors. Some of them are marketed specifically as hydration or wellness products. And the research coming out of nephrology over the last decade keeps pointing at the same pattern. Adults whose kidney function is declining faster than their age would suggest, whose lifestyle on paper looks responsible, and whose drink choices are the variable that keeps appearing in the data. A 2021 analysis published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology followed over 3,400 adults for 7 years, examining not just what they ate, but specifically what they drank, and how those choices correlated with kidney function over time. The findings were clear enough that the lead researcher described the results as evidence that beverage choices represent an underappreciated and highly modifiable risk factor for kidney function decline in adults over 55. Modifiable. That word matters. These are not genetic factors. They are choices, and choices can be changed. The 7th drink on this list surprises almost everyone, because it is something most people consider a form of responsible hydration. But the first one, the most damaging, is something a significant portion of adults drink daily while actively believing it is supporting their health, with no awareness of what it is doing to the tissue responsible for keeping their blood clean. Before we begin, tell us in the comments right now, how old are you and where are you watching from? And which of these 7 drinks is part of your daily routine? Drop it below. We read and respond to every single comment. Number 7. Flavored water with citric acid additives. Flavored water has positioned itself as the sophisticated alternative to plain water for adults who find plain water boring, but want to avoid the sugar and calories of traditional beverages. The marketing around these products is almost universally positive. 0 calories, 0 sugar, just water with a hint of natural flavor. The reality is more complicated, and the detail that matters most for kidney health is buried in the ingredient list under a name that sounds entirely innocuous: citric acid. Citric acid is used as a preservative and flavor enhancer in the vast majority of commercially flavored waters. It is also a natural compound found in citrus fruits, which is why its presence in a beverage feels harmless. The difference between the citric acid in a fresh lemon and the citric acid in a mass-produced flavored water is concentration and frequency of exposure. In high concentrations consumed regularly, citric acid increases the urinary excretion of citrate in a way that can shift the chemical environment of the kidney tubules toward conditions that favor calcium oxalate crystal formation. This is the same mechanism involved in kidney stone development, and while flavored water alone is unlikely to cause a stone in an otherwise healthy kidney, in adults whose kidney function has already begun to decline and who are consuming these products daily as their primary source of hydration, the cumulative effect on tubular chemistry is not neutral. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Urology examined urinary chemistry markers in adults who substituted commercially flavored water for plain water as their primary daily fluid source over 12 weeks. Markers associated with calcium oxalate supersaturation increased significantly compared to baseline, with the effect most pronounced in adults over 60, whose baseline kidney function was already modestly reduced. The straightforward alternative is plain water with a slice of fresh lemon or cucumber added at home, which delivers flavor without the concentrated citric acid load of commercial products. The kidney handles natural citrate from whole fruit sources through mechanisms that differ meaningfully from how it processes the concentrated additive form. Number 6. Store-bought fruit juice consumed daily. This one generates the most resistance of any drink on this list, and the resistance is understandable. Fruit juice feels like health. It feels like vitamins, like natural goodness, like something your body needs. The orange juice on the breakfast table is a cultural symbol of taking care of yourself. The kidney-specific problem with daily store-bought fruit juice has two components, and both are relevant independent of each other. The first is fructose concentration. Whole fruit contains fructose, but it also contains fiber that slows absorption and limits the amount that reaches the liver and kidneys in any single wave. Juice removes the fiber and concentrates the fructose. A glass of commercial orange juice delivers the fructose of 3 to 4 oranges with none of the fiber that would slow its absorption in the whole fruit form. When large amounts of fructose are processed by the liver, uric acid is produced as a byproduct. Uric acid must be filtered and excreted by the kidneys. At normal levels, this is handled efficiently. When fructose intake is high and consistent, uric acid production exceeds the kidney's comfortable clearance capacity. Uric acid begins to accumulate in the tubular fluid, and at elevated concentrations, it contributes to tubular inflammation and the same crystal formation process that produces gout in the joints. A large prospective study published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases followed adults over 60 for 8 years and found that those who consumed more than 1 serving of commercially produced fruit juice daily had a 36% higher rate of kidney function decline compared to those who consumed none. The association held after controlling for overall sugar intake, diabetes status, and body weight. The second component is potassium loading in adults with any degree of reduced kidney function. Healthy kidneys regulate potassium with remarkable precision. Kidneys that have lost some functional capacity do this less efficiently, and the high potassium content of fruit juices can create an excretion burden that compounds existing kidney stress. This is why nephrologists routinely counsel patients with established kidney disease to limit juice consumption, but the conversation rarely happens before a formal diagnosis is made, during the years when the damage is accumulating. Number 5. Sports drinks used as daily hydration. Sports drinks were engineered for a specific physiological context, replacing electrolytes and carbohydrates lost during prolonged intense exercise. In that context, they do exactly what they were designed to do. The problem is that they have been marketed beyond that context so successfully that millions of adults now use them as general daily hydration, consuming them while sitting at desks, walking casually, or simply going about their day, with no meaningful sweat loss that would justify the electrolyte and sugar load they deliver. The kidneys maintain electrolyte homeostasis through continuous filtration and selective reabsorption. When electrolyte intake matches what the body is losing through activity and sweat, this process runs at its natural efficiency. When electrolyte intake consistently exceeds losses because the drink was designed for an athlete but is being consumed by someone who is moderately sedentary, the kidneys must excrete the excess sodium, potassium, and phosphate with every serving. Sodium excretion requires tubular energy. The tubular cells that move sodium across their membranes are doing metabolic work with every transport cycle, and that work accelerates their functional aging when the demand is consistently higher than necessary. Phosphate excretion triggers the FGF23 hormonal cascade that forces the kidney into elevated clearance mode, a state that in chronic form has been associated with accelerated kidney function decline in multiple longitudinal studies. Additionally, most commercial sports drinks contain phosphoric acid as a flavoring component. Phosphoric acid is one of the most efficiently absorbed forms of inorganic phosphate available, with absorption rates approaching 100% compared to the 40 to 60% absorption of phosphorus from whole food sources. Consumed daily, it delivers a phosphate load to the kidney tubules that compounds the electrolyte clearance burden simultaneously. A 2019 study published in Nephrology Dialysis Transplantation compared kidney function markers across 3 years in adults over 60 who use sports drinks as their primary daily hydration versus those who drank primarily water. The sports drink group showed significantly faster GFR decline and elevated markers of tubular stress, despite identical total daily fluid volumes and comparable dietary patterns. Before we continue, if this has been useful so far, hit that like button so more people can find this information. Subscribe and turn on notifications. New content every week. Number 4. Diet sodas and artificially sweetened beverages. The switch from regular soda to diet soda is almost universally framed as a health improvement. 0 calories, 0 sugar, no glycemic impact. For people managing weight or blood sugar, it feels like the responsible substitution. For kidney health specifically, the research tells a more complicated story. A prospective study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology followed over 3,000 women for 11 years and examined the relationship between artificially sweetened beverage consumption and kidney function. Women who consumed 2 or more artificially sweetened drinks daily showed a 30% faster rate of kidney function decline compared to those who consumed none, independent of diabetes status, blood pressure, body weight, and overall dietary quality. The association was specific to diet drinks. Regular sugar-sweetened beverages did not show the same association at equivalent volumes, which pointed toward the artificial sweeteners themselves rather than overall beverage intake as the relevant variable. The proposed mechanism involves direct tubular toxicity. Artificial sweeteners, primarily aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin, are not metabolized through normal pathways. They pass largely intact into the bloodstream and are filtered and excreted by the kidney tubules in concentrated form. At the concentrations reached in tubular fluid during excretion, these compounds appear to have a damaging effect on the cells lining the tubules, triggering oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling that over years of consistent exposure contributes to tubular cell aging and function loss. This does not mean that occasional consumption of diet drinks causes kidney disease. The research points to daily habitual consumption as the relevant exposure level, and the effect is most pronounced in adults whose kidney function has already begun to decline with age. Number 3. Alcohol consumed regularly, even in moderate amounts. Moderate alcohol consumption occupies a complicated space in health research, with some studies suggesting cardiovascular benefits at low levels, while others point to consistent harms. For kidney health specifically, the picture is less ambiguous. Alcohol is a diuretic. It suppresses antidiuretic hormone production, causing the kidneys to produce urine at an accelerated rate, regardless of the body's hydration status. In a well-hydrated person, this effect is manageable. In an adult who is already mildly dehydrated, which describes the majority of adults over 60 who tend to have a diminished thirst response, the diuretic effect of alcohol deepens the fluid deficit before the body has any signal to compensate. The kidney filtering tissue depends on adequate hydraulic pressure to maintain efficient filtration. Dehydration reduces that pressure. When dehydration is induced repeatedly by regular alcohol consumption in a body that is already managing age-related declines in thirst sensitivity and kidney concentrating ability, The cumulative effect on glomerular and tubular function is measurable. Beyond dehydration, alcohol metabolism produces acetaldehyde, which is toxic to kidney tubular cells at concentrations reached during regular drinking. A 2021 study published in Nephrology Dialysis Transplantation found that adults consuming more than 14 standard drinks weekly showed kidney function decline at a rate 43% faster over 6 years than those consuming fewer than 7, independent of blood pressure, diabetes, and dietary quality. The kidney protective threshold in the research sits at 7 or fewer standard drinks weekly for adults over 60, with the most protective pattern including at least 2 consecutive alcohol-free days per week to allow tubular repair mechanisms to operate without suppression. Number 2. Protein shakes consumed as the first drink of the day. Protein supplementation after 60 has a strong and genuine evidence base. Muscle preservation, immune function, metabolic health. The case for adequate protein intake in older adults is well established. The kidney-specific issue is not with protein itself, but with the timing and concentration of delivery, specifically with consuming a large bolus of protein in liquid form on an empty stomach before any other fluid intake has occurred. Protein digestion produces nitrogen-containing waste products, primarily urea, that must be filtered and excreted by the kidneys. A large concentrated protein load produces a large urea load. The kidneys respond by increasing their filtration rate, a phenomenon called hyperfiltration, to clear the excess nitrogen quickly. In the early morning, before any fluid intake has occurred, the kidney is operating in its lowest pressure overnight state, with a mild fluid deficit from sleep. Driving in abruptly into hyperfiltration mode through a large concentrated protein load creates a more acute and more demanding spike than the same protein consumed later in the day when the kidney is operating at its daytime capacity with adequate hydration. A study published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases found that adults over 60 who consumed more than 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight in a single morning bolus showed measurably faster GFR decline over 5 years compared to adults consuming the same total daily protein distributed across 3 meals. The timing and concentration of the protein load mattered as much as the total quantity. The practical adjustment is straightforward. Moving the protein shake to mid-morning or post-exercise after plain water and a lighter first meal allows the kidney to reach its daytime hydration and filtration baseline before receiving a concentrated protein load. Number 1. Plain water consumed in insufficient quantities throughout the day. This is the most common, most consequential, and most consistently underestimated kidney drink mistake on this list. Not a product with a brand name, not a beverage with additives or sugar. The absence of adequate plain water, repeated daily across years, is one of the most reliable predictors of accelerated kidney function decline available in the research. Your kidneys filter 200 liters of blood daily. To do this efficiently, they depend on adequate fluid volume in the bloodstream to maintain the hydraulic pressure that drives filtration through the glomerular membranes. When fluid intake is chronically insufficient, not dramatically so, not obviously dehydrated, just consistently below what the filtration system needs to operate at full efficiency, filtration pressure is reduced. Waste products become more concentrated in the tubular fluid. The kidneys compensate by working harder to maintain clearance with less hydraulic support. This compensation is invisible and painless. The thirst mechanism in adults over 60 is significantly less sensitive than in younger adults, meaning the body's signal to drink arrives later and weaker as we age. Adults who rely on thirst to guide their fluid intake are chronically underdrinking without knowing it. A landmark study from the National Institutes of Health followed adults over 60 for a decade and found that those who consistently drank less than 1.5 liters of fluid daily showed a 45% faster rate of kidney function decline compared to those who maintained adequate hydration, after controlling for every other relevant variable. The difference was not between severely dehydrated and well hydrated. It was between slightly underhydrated and adequately hydrated, a distinction that produces no obvious symptoms, but accumulates into a decade of unnecessary kidney aging. Urine color is the most accessible real-time indicator available. Pale yellow throughout the day indicates adequate hydration. Dark yellow or amber in the mid-afternoon before the evening's fluid intake begins indicates that the kidney has been working under hydration stress since morning. Most adults who believe they are drinking enough would be surprised by the color of their urine on a typical afternoon. A practical target for most adults over 60 is 1.5 to 2 liters of fluid daily, with the majority consumed before 3 in the afternoon to avoid the overnight fluid burden that leads to disrupted sleep. Plain water remains the most kidney-efficient hydration vehicle available because it delivers what the filtration system needs without any additional regulatory burden. Everything else on this list adds something the kidney has to process. Water adds nothing except what the kidney needs most. 7 drinks. Some are marketed as healthy. Some are marketed as responsible substitutions. Some feel like self-care. Each of them, in the quantities and patterns most adults consume them, creates a specific and documented burden on tissue that is filtering your blood every hour of every day, without a single pain signal to tell you when it is struggling. You do not need to eliminate all of them. You need to understand what each one costs and make the choice with that information. Swap one this week. Increase your plain water before anything else. The kidney that has been quietly compensating for years has more capacity left than you might think, if you stop asking it to work harder than it has to. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these 7 drinks surprised you most? Are any of them part of your daily routine right now? Share in the comments below. We respond to every single one. Subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, we are covering the 7 foods that nephrologists identify as the most consistent drivers of kidney damage in adults who believe they are eating healthily. And number 3 is something almost everyone has been told is good for them.